Hello, my name is Manoj Agrawal and the group editor at Banking Frontiers magazine. Today we are hosting a panel discussion on the evolution of loan origination systems in light of the second wave of the pandemic, of the corona pandemic in India. Let's see what kind of interesting insights emerge from this discussion, where I have techno business heads from 4 NBFCs with me and one person from an IT company, Spiridian. So gentlemen, I'd like all of you to briefly introduce yourself for half a minute each, and then we will get into the panel discussion. Can we start with Dominic?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Dominic. I am the head of IT for a housing finance company based out of Gurgaon. We are more on the rural front. We operate in the 5 states of India. And presently, we run a very good book size compared to the rural side, especially on the rural front. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Dominic. Rahul?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Chopra. I'm Chief Digital Officer for Clicks Capital. And Clicks Capital is full-blown digital-first NBFC.
Thank you, Rahul. Harsh?
Hi, everyone. My name is Harsh Chamria. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Magma FinCorp. At Magma, we have 3 lines of financing. We finance vehicles, so cars, trucks, tractors, construction equipment. We do financing of mortgage, so loans against property and home loans in the affordable segment. And finally, we also do unsecured SME loans, and we also have an insurance joint venture company. We are a fairly traditional NBFC, although having digitally transformed the last 2 to 3 years.
That's great. Thank you, Harsh. Rishabh?
Hi everyone, my name is Rishabh. I'm CTO at Libro Capital. We are into MSME lending space and we are focused on lending to sector-specific organizations. And we are a pretty much younger company. We are here for 3 years. And our focus is to enable digital lending.
Kennels, can we have your introduction?
Yes. Good afternoon all. I'm Kennels from Spiridian Technologies. I'm heading the product and innovation part, especially for the BFSI segment. Yes, we have around 25 plus years of experience in the BFSI industry.
That's great. Thank you, Kennels. So welcome everyone. Let's jump into the discussion. So my first question is this, and maybe Dominic can start because you said you focus on the rural market. I recently read that the demand for goods in the rural areas is rising compared to urban demand. And is that reflected in credit also, in business also? Do you have any understanding of how the market is in urban areas or in general now or in the last 12 months, let's say?
Manoj, to be very frank, last 12 months being a very hard time for us, okay, especially we being working on the rural customers. Yes, no, there's not much of a demand coming from the urban side, but yeah, there are a lot of demands from the rural side, though there are post-COVID and pre-COVID issues. Okay, and we see, but in the rural side also, there are certain particular areas where the demand is more. For example, you look at Haryana, you look at Rajasthan, and again in Rajasthan, there are certain areas where the requirement of business is generating. Because when we did a business plan for this financial year and last what we compared, so we could see that there are requirement of housing loans, especially this time since I'm from the housing finance background. I say the requirement of housing loans is more on these kind of areas, especially on the Rajasthan and Haryana sector. And Delhi NCR is not much compared to this, but Haryana and Rajasthan, we see a very green patch coming up. And with a sudden surge in the second wave, a little bit of challenges we are facing, but otherwise we see much of business coming in from those sides.
Okay, thanks. Anyone, any observation in any other part of the country?
We are mainly in metro cities only.
Okay.
We recently started in rural, but I think in rural still it seems like business as usual. The urban, in COVID times, urban businesses are which got stuck more as compared to rural businesses. That's what I have observed.
Harsh, what is your company's exposure and what trends have you seen?
Yeah, so Manoj, we are present in about 300 cities in the country and very much going to tier 3, tier 4, plus towns. And we have 80%, we cover 80% of the PIN codes in 21 states that we operate in. So we do have a fair bit of exposure into semi-urban and rural. what we are finding is that demand is starting to be impacted by COVID quite materially around the country, across the country. And I think the spread of the second wave this time is far more into the interiors of the country than just in the larger cities. I think the scare is larger in the larger cities. So your Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay are obviously, Pune are adversely impacted. But the spread is, quite large in the semi-urban rural areas also. And there the issue is the healthcare infrastructure is quite, incapacitated. And therefore, and of course, the panic levels are also much higher there because the awareness levels also are slightly lower. So there also demand is being impacted quite significantly this time around, particularly in certain states like Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand. There have actually been lockdowns that have been announced. So I think Rajasthan was announced 2 or 3 days ago. Jharkhand was announced just 1 or 2 days ago. While officially the orders may be for specific cities, but basically in practice, the entire state gets locked down. And in fact, while in Maharashtra, we got the NBFCs included in the essential category, but in some of these other states, the official detailed guidelines are not out yet. And therefore, when they say lockdown, it actually means the offices are also shut, which creates problems for customers who, when they bounce their EMIs, they usually pay in cash. So we still have about 20% cash collection, while 75% is digital. So it actually creates a problem for those customers. And this time around, obviously, there is no moratorium that has been announced by RBI.
Correct.
So it is honestly creating some bit of problem in these semi-urban rural pockets. And in fact, customers are also starting to say that, look, last time RBI gave us moratorium. So this time, I mean, they don't think, they feel that it is us as an NBFC giving moratorium. So they actually said that aapko aap bhi moratorium doge fir se. So on and so forth. So it is getting a little tricky. Demand is slipping. Anyways, April is usually a slightly slower month, but this time it is much slower than usual because of the second wave that is spreading into semi-urban rural areas also. Yeah.
So it's going to be tight for a little
while.
Point of time.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to an LOS system that probably is the core system for a lender, for any lender like you, in terms of COVID and second wave, are there any particular risk management systems or any particular loan monitoring systems that you see as becoming more and more important, that are used more and more, that are getting more and more attention from the management? Any such trend seen internally?
Yeah, so definitely from when you are on a digital front, so it is very important considering the current dynamics that are around. So you have to handle your risks analytics in a very, very different way. So having said that, we have our in-house analytic capability, wherein we have our own patent underwriting engine, which we call internally. So that is being fine-tuned, and some of the tightening of policy being done, to be very frank. And having said that, the situation for us, it was too much of change management because we were just opening up. So we actually were about to hit our numbers the way it used to be pre-COVID.
Okay.
Then this all of a sudden within 10 days to 12 days, the situation has, aggravated. And then we have to bring back those changes because in our personal loan portfolio, we are 100% digital. So there is no DSA model that do sourcing on a personal loan side for us. So it is very important that we bring and plug those changes into our underwriting engine. So yes, we did.
Okay. Rishabh, how is Ugro Capital responding to the COVID wave in terms of whatever technology you're using, risk monitoring and loan monitoring and all that?
So pretty much we, during this COVID time, I feel we should have a strong focus on underwriting technology as what Rahul Dominic has presented. And technology can get you all the relevant data points right now. And sector-specific risks should feed into your underwriting models for making informed decisions. And I feel for during this period, certain ticket sizes need manual intervention to maintain the good asset quality. At Ugro, we since we have a digitally assisted physical kind of model where we, because of ticket sizes involved, we visit customer, we do field investigation, visit customer premises to understand their businesses. So currently, if we are unable to meet customers, what the best we can do bureau scrubs just to keep a check on the well-being of their assets, the kind of loans they've taken from other lenders.
Mhm.
And we are also conducting regular calls with the businesses, regular telephonic calls with businesses, basically to understand how the business is faring and how it's where it is going right now. Just to in case there are some red alerts, we can raise it at an earlier stage only.
Okay.
Also, apart from this, though wherever it is possible, we are making visits to the business premises. Otherwise, bureau scrubs and regular phone calls would suffice.
So Dominic, how is it for Art with home buyers? What kind of monitoring?
They're more than digital, it's more of a manual process which is happening, Manoj, to be very frank. Yeah, digitally, we did a lot of activity by bringing in the decision as a service engine, own rule engine, which was built for us 2 years back with around 6,000 policies and deviation and all that built in that, so that, the underwrite. But fortunately, unfortunately, because of this COVID, okay, where our kind of customers are very, very from the rural background, we had to go through a lot of the digital didn't help us so much as we expected, but manual processes have been initiated for recovering especially the collection point of view. The risk is more on the collection side because we are enabling a little bit of digital technology for making online payment. Physical visits have been maintained. Call centers have been initiated with multiple calls, SMS system, WhatsApp. We are trying to approach customers in all kind of modes. I can say it's more of a physical kind of approach. At present, that is the risk what we are control on the NPAs and recover maximum amount of.
So do you need more people actually to do the manual bits compared to earlier days?
Yeah. We are requiring more of manpower, especially on the collection front, okay, to meet the customer personally and try to say, because maximum amount of customers are like I can say around 60% we do a cash collection. Okay, because of various reasons from the customer, because we have people like Kirana stores, auto drivers, Ola drivers, these kind of customers.
Okay.
So taking payment from them is always a challenge. There we have increased our manpower right now because of this. Yes, digital is helping us, but not to that extent what we expect because of this unpredicted situations.
Okay. Harsh, anything different do you see from your perspective?
Yeah, Manoj, I'd say that a couple of things that we saw a little different. We were able to use digital quite effectively to extend the ECLGS, loans, which are the credit guaranteed loans by the government to our customer set. So we were able to disburse almost about 2,500 loans to our live customer base of SMEs of about 30,000. In just the first couple of months of the ECLGS being released, and I think eventually the number went to about 5,000 customers plus. And it was done entirely digitally. We were able to get the bank statements, digitally. We were able to, do the loan agreement digitally and the NACH form, because these were small loans, only 20% of the outstanding existing loan amount. We were able to get the consent and change their NACH mandates also entirely digitally. So that was a good change for us. While Manoj, we were capacitized as an organization to do this digitally even before COVID, but the customers' behavior had not changed pre-COVID. So COVID turned out to be a catalyst for change in the customer behavior, where they were also willing to do these things digitally, and in fact, rather wanting to do these things digitally, even if our FOS might have been wanting to go and do it in paper, but they were wanting to do it digitally. So this was one big change that we saw, during COVID with our customer base. The second, I would say that while we used to always get data from the bureau for scrubs and so on and so forth, but this time around, in addition to checking the moratorium behavior of the customer with our own customers, our own loans, we were also checking moratorium behavior of the customer with other loans that he was carrying on other people's on other lenders' books, because that was giving us a sense of how much he is prioritizing repayment of our loans. And if we were finding that he's repaying other lenders but not repaying us, or vice versa, we were applying a slightly higher risk perception to that customer. So we behaved differently with that customer from the first moratorium to the second Morat 1 to Morat 2. So these were two things specifically that we did leveraging digital effectively.
Okay, that's interesting. If I may ask, Kenils, you have this loan management solution that Spiridion offers. How has that solution evolved during the last, 6 months, 12 months to serve maybe rural customers, for example, where according to the statistics, urban is more hit, so rural is an opportunity. How does your technology facilitate companies like these to go after rural customers or tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 areas?
Yes, yeah, we are designing so many applications, especially for the rural segment. Actually, we have the common thing is that the group loan in a rural area. We can see that good number of group loans are moving now. See there, what we are doing now. See, some connectivity issues are maybe there in the rural area while moving forward and all. No, see, we have a application, a field level application that will work. Yes, without connectivity, even that can handle around 100 plus loan applications, and we can do the complete lending without internet connectivity in the rural area. That type of solutions we have, and that's again as part of this LOS actually. So many other things are there, like geotagging, geofencing. All these features will work even without connectivity. And moving on now, see, we have a Aadhaar card based loan payment system. That means if the rural people may have one Aadhaar card only, then we can deliver the loan in their doorstep by using that Aadhaar card itself. Nothing to see the end customer, no need to do anything other than that. Now, see, simply sharing the Aadhaar card and pressing on the scanner, he will get, the KYC validations, all the stuff will happen, and the credit checking also real time happening, and the lending policy will check internally with the lending system, and finally the disbursement will happen in the doorstep. That type of concept we implemented, and especially for the the rural segment, I don't know, we have this DSA concept, the complete DSA management solution. That means, even the same concept will work in the urban areas also. See, direct selling agents, sales agents, or the business correspondents may be there, and these people may be working for you. And see, we are providing the end-to-end controlling system for the DSA, and we can say, okay, these are the loans that we are assigning to, these are the schemes, or these are the products that we are assigning to these DSAs, and these are the other to these DSAs. And some of them may be working in semi-urban area, some of them may be working in rural area, and we can define different types of loans to different area, and we can assign these DSAs in that particular area. And these DSAs will work, and the complete application for the DSAs, there may be field executives are there, and we are providing the application for them also. The complete solution is ICT based. And again, now see, what we can say, even the common man can approach the company or the NBFC, and they can apply for a loan without filling anything in the paper or something. No, see, as just before somebody told, no, see, everything digitized. So front office executive app is there, front desk app. See, we can simply scan the Aadhaar, and we can capture the other information while talking to the customer, and we can give the printout of all the documents if somebody want to sign on that, or we have the digital signing mechanism.
Okay.
Yeah, some other things I need to highlight is that, see, the mobility and customer application. We are providing end customer application for the NBFCs and banks. Now, see, that application will work in a regional language. Currently it is supporting 7 languages actually. All major languages are there. And the thing is that this application itself guide the customer, okay, how to proceed on the loan application and all. And again, we added speech recognition also. See, someone can speak in their language, like in Marathi, they can ask, okay, I need a loan. I'm searching for a personal loan. Then the application will respond in their regional language. Okay, you need to do like this.
Okay.
We added very recently, and now we added this WhatsApp-based LOS also. See, somebody can simply send a hi in a particular number, and the system will automatically respond based on their language options.
Okay.
Then the system will get, okay, you do this likewise, it may be a voice response, or it may, both voice response and text responses are there. Likewise, the customer can respond to that. Likewise, so many features we are added to attend this these type of segments. And again, see, normally we have all these type of concepts like IVR-based, misquote-based, message-based generation mechanisms are there. But see, these are the recent add-ons that we did, especially in this COVID time.
So let me come to Dominic. I mean, Kenils has described some features. do those kind of things from the end customer's point of view? What makes an impact? Is it WhatsApp? Is it voice? Is it Aadhaar based? What is working in rural India, or at least your customer segments?
Manoj, very frankly speaking, customer prefers to have more of a human touch. Okay, though we have digital process in place, especially from the rural side, customers always prefer to have a human touch especially when they're investing in buying a property or loan against property, because it's a one-time life investment. It's not that every frequently they keep buying it. That is one thing. At the same time, they need technology. Time is also a main concern for us. For example, our LO system is totally built on a app-based technology. Okay, it's a single platform. So the complete acquiring of a customer happens at the doorstep, which includes even your CIBIL score is taken at his doorstep, PAN card verified, everything is done. And when the file gets uploaded, and it's a real-time activity. So within 45 minutes, I come to know whether the customer is eligible for the loan or depending on the kind of policies we have set. Okay, so at 46th minute, I tell the customer that, because of your CIBIL is less than 650, I may not be able to disperse the loan for you, but we capture the data and give. But some cases we take a deviation, again, that is system generated. So there I could feel customers are more comfortable, because normally the process for a housing loan takes 7 days just to log in a file, 7 to 10 days, depending on the kind of documentation, everything. Because you talk about the financial statements. The financial statements, what we pick up is mostly from the cooperative banks, kind of bank statements, and very few people have an automated banking statement. Then Aadhaar card verification we do. Okay, then we do a PAN verification, then we do CIBIL is very important for us, because there we decide on the customer's credibility. And we find certain customers who never been having a credit history also.
Right.
So this kind of customer acquisition app, which was launched in 2016, has helped us to acquire quite a lot of customers, and customers are comfortable in doing it. But when it comes, the customer at the same time, customer wants us also to talk to them, explain them certain things. Like, and then once this what we have done is up to digitize, up to sanction, we are 100% digitized. That means within 3 to 4 days, the customer comes to know that whether his loan is sanctioned or not sanctioned. And if it is sanctioned, what is the value sanctioned with multiple co-applicants. Because in our process, we are maintaining that one lady co-applicant is mandatory. Okay. And second thing is, when it comes to disbursement, we are even the digital documents, customer doesn't have to come to my branch or walk into my office. It is digitally signed through e-sign, which we are tied up with 2-3 vendors, and we are using that, which was off late into, I think, 1 year back, 1.5 years back we introduced. So this kind of experience makes customer more comfortable. And, I felt that, customers are more reliable, and your data is also secure, because today customers, when they're giving their Aadhaar card or any kind of KYC documents, they're very, very precise. They 10 times ask you why, what, how, is a copy. So these kind of things happen, and there is a confidence built in the customer by using technology. At the same time, they want us to physically also talk to them and make them understand to some extent. So there's two things which plays a role.
More of a hybrid model.
I think, it's understanding the customer sentiments very, very important for me. Okay, because when a credit BCM is trying to underwrite this case, he should be in the position of understanding the customer frequently, because we do a video PD plus we do a physical PD also.
Okay.
So we.
Okay, that's great. May I now ask maybe Harsh and Rahul about are customers frequently coming and asking for change pertaining to the loan, such as the EMI or tenure or something else, rate change, because of changes in the market? And how quickly do you really need to respond to them in a competitive market? Is speed of response important for any kind of change that the customer wants, an existing customer?
Yeah. So we are getting such stuff, and Manoj, in our case, in Clicks, so what we have done is that the LOS is designed purely internally. So we have lending as a service, as a platform. So it is a combination of the open source stack of workflow, rule engine, and the DB. So hence, for us, making change is very much in an agile mode. Okay, so we have done this much prior to COVID. Having said that, I heard George, some of the stuff that he talked about are really amazing, right? I would definitely like to connect with him and learn from him more around it. But having said that, that is how we build, right? So for us, being a digital first NBFC, we have to have a stack which is in our control, right? So, and hence the change for us can be managed in a very, very stipulated way. Dominic talked about collection, right, as a challenge, and then boosting more people there. Just to help other folks in the audience, we actually supported collection as well through the digital intervention, a lot, and it helped us. So, for example, George talked about WhatsApp channel. He talked about vernacular, bot, some voice-based capabilities. All those things we have implemented, and we focused around collection. And believe me, started giving us a good amount of results, right? So the people who were having right intent and they were just waiting for the ease of making payment through a very easy channel rather than a complexity of downloading app. So probably WhatsApp turned out to be a very good medium for us. Even a voice-based outbound call helped us do a lot of collection for us. So that's another piece where we have done some of the changes. But just to answer your stuff, yes, of course. I mean, we are receiving such requests and we are able to handle that through our stack.
Harsh, what is your this thing on changing the loans and kind of whatever requirements come up and responding to it? Yeah. Do customers actually move away if you are not, if a lender is not able to respond?
So Manoj, I would say that there's been a massive sea change that has happened over the last 5 years. Just the way, with cell phones and the telecom service providers, you had the zero portability fee, and it became very easy to be portable and to change your number and your provider. I think with BFSI as well, now the number of providers who are there for loans, I don't think it's, as long as you don't have a bad score, I think it's fairly easy to go and get money in the market today, and it's creating other kind of problems. But I would say that customer service has become extremely critical, and I think being flexible, providing the exact kind of repayment flexibility that the customer demands or the customer's business demands, I think has become paramount. So it's nice to hear about the stuff that Speridian and Kenil's company are doing, but there are several LMS providers who've come up, and I'm sure that they're working in a very competitive market, providing all kinds of flexibility. You want to have interest only payments for the first 3 months, and then you start a step up EMI, where first 12 months you have lower amount of EMIs, the next 12 months you have a large number of EMIs, whether you have a seasonal payments. So we are in the tractor loan business, and we have actually 6 monthly payments also that we do for our tractor customers, because they have 2 cropping cycles, so we only EMIs during the harvesting period, and in the sort of ensuing period, we only take the interest payments, or we take just interest plus a little bit more of the principal from a risk perspective. So I think the need for flexibility, Manoj, has become extremely high. I think as banks also have become quite experienced with buying securitized pools of NBFCs like ours, I think they've also become comfortable with pushing the envelope on the risk side. So I think as NBFCs and fintechs, we need to consistently keep providing customers the flexibility so that they have a reason to come to NBFCs like ours. Specifically during COVID period, I would say that we have about 10 lakh customers who are live with us. Specifically during COVID, we found that a lot of customers actually came to us saying that, look, I don't have cash flows right now. I don't want to take moratorium, but please reduce my EMI because this much cash I would like to pay. And that's because we educated them, that we also were in favor of that, because we didn't want to spoil the habit of payment of the customer. So we much rather was suggesting that you reduce your EMI, but don't take the moratorium. And that worked out in favor, because that allowed us to be in touch with the customer, digitally, of course, on the phone, on Zoom. And as Rahul mentioned, I echo his thoughts that we give the UPI payment options and all of that stuff that we allowed the customer to pay us on. But that allowed us to maintain the relationship with the customer and talk to them about their families, about their health, about their business health. And, the habit continued. So that actually kept us in good stead. But that also required that our loan management system allows for the sort of change of the tenure of the loan. And Manoj, it's a nuanced point, but these days it's become so complicated, because it's not just the change of a tenure of a loan. You have the NSCH mandate, which has to be remandated.
Okay.
Unless your original mandate had a higher amount EMI, you have to give a new repayment schedule. You have to give that to the customer as per the RPI FPC guidelines. You have to give it to the customer. There's the interest on interest refund that was to be given by Supreme Court. So if you change the tenure, does it still apply? And the calculations thereof. There's a loan suraksha that most of us NBFCs give, it's a life insurance on the loan amount. So that tenure is now mismatched, right? So do you want to give the new loan, do you want to cancel the original loan suraksha or give a fresh one? So these are just few of the nuances that I pointed out, where the more detailed you think through, I think a good loan management solution provider can actually create a interesting COVID product and just say that, look, I have a product which is ready-made if you'd like to come to me. For the next wave, of course, I think this way, you can't change your LMS very quickly.
Among the nuances, how easy or difficult is it to do the risk calculation all over again? Is that a challenge? Because if a 2-year loan becomes a 4-year loan, is there a risk involved? Maybe the person is retiring after the second year.
No, you're very right. You're very right, Manoj. We had to pretty much do the entire underwriting again. So you have to take the bank statements again. You have to, if they filed, the audited returns for MSME or SME, to kind of take that again, because you're right. Just delaying the problem is just kicking the can down the road, and that's not really the solution. So even in the ECLGS loans that we gave, even though they were guaranteed by the government, but actually did the entire underwriting again. And this is where I think technology had a big role to play, because the first time when we had given the loan, say 3 years or 4 years ago, that time we didn't have the kind of business rule engine or the credit rule engine that we have today. So when we took the fresh data, we were able to run it through a scorecard and get a basic result out, which told us whether or not this customer is eligible, and only then we served him digitally. You're very right. We had to do those calculations to ensure that the car, for example, is not going beyond the
car.
Absolutely. Or that the customer is not getting too old and might not be retiring after his job or whatever. So all these calculations we have to do again. So we created a basic scorecard that we could run through our rule engines. But this is where I think technology really played a big role, because it wasn't as people intensive. As long as the data was collected, the underwriting could be fairly quick.
Great. That's what I was thinking of. And I've just thought maybe one more thing, that if there is someone who is guarantor of the loan, that may also become an issue. Even if it becomes a 2-year loan, becomes a 4-year loan.
Very much. So
Rishabh, if I come to you and ask you in terms of the evolution of LOS systems today onwards, or let's say second wave onwards, do you see more of technology changes? Do you see more of business functionality changes? And if there are business functionality changes, do you see more of tweaks or more of major changes?
So for focus from beginning, since we are a younger company, focus from beginning was to build a tech-enabled lending organization.
Right.
Since we rapidly had expanded across different customer segments and products, we made frequent improvements in our loan origination system and continue to do so in future. As new data sources and technology made available to simplify the user experience, I think fintech companies like us keep on evolving. And I feel if our LOS is not evolving with time, then we are not innovating enough. And regarding business processes, I feel that technology should support business processes and make it more efficient. And our focus is on improving the business functionality. And underlying technology should also involve to support the improvement in business functionality and processes. You can just take an example of video.
Which is a bigger challenge, technology or business functionality today?
So the technology cannot work in silos. So it's the business functionality, what I feel should be of paramount importance, that the technology should enable that business functionality. Just take an example of video KYC. The business requires that KYC should be conducted remotely, and technology made this happen through video KYC. So these kind of innovations will keep on coming, and as it also very much depends on the compliances, RBI regulations. So as more and more regulations come in favor of NBFCs, certainly the business process would improve to help customers experience a streamlined process of getting loans.
So Kenneth, if I come to you,
yes.
A lot of what you described was customer facing improvements, Aadhaar-enabled payments, multilingual, stuff like that. What about the back end? What kind of improvements has Peridien made in the technology, maybe at the back end or in terms of core technology?
Okay, good question. See, In 2000s and all, no, see, we have some solutions. At that time, it was VB-based and desktop-based applications, especially small, auto on one application. Likewise, no, see, I think we redeveloped the entire solution in 2014 to 2015 in that time. And it's a complete revamp. Now it's a fully browser-based, microservice architecture-based solution. Now it's front-end is ASP.NET, and backend it may be Oracle, or it will work with MS SQL Server also. This is the concept that currently we have. This solution currently we have, and the features wise, see, day by day we are adding so many features. See, like now, as you said, see, customer front-ending side is there, like channels. It is there, like a DSA, dealer site app, field executive app, customer app. All these things are in communicating to the centralized LOI system. That's the important thing. Previously, most of the company may have, say, for the vehicle loan, they may have a separate solution, separate workflow, and mortgage loan, separate workflow, business loan, separate solution, or software company may be implementing the solution. Currently, our system is capable of, we can say, an enterprise LOI system. Capable of any type of loan schemes, business loan, yes, including financial statement analysis, everything is inbuilt in the system actually. And likewise, mortgage loan, housing loan, we can work out. Group, even the small micro loan also, we can see for each one we can create different workflow, and see we can say it may not be a the semi-technical person also can create different types of workflow. That's the beauty of the solution. Okay. This is coming with all types of integration, like Dominic said, see, they need the entire system need to respond in 45 minutes time. See, what we build is that in our LO system we can set our lending policy itself. Yeah, credit score may be the one factor, and so many other things may be there. And based on that, system will recommend, okay, this person is eligible for this much amount only. And see, based on the scheme, we can, for the micro loan and all, it will be real time. That means the system will respond in 1 or 2 minutes time. Just KYC, then the CIBIL check will happen in the mobile application itself, and the system will check with the internal credit policy. And based on that, system will recommend, okay, this person is not eligible for this reason. Based on, okay, he is eligible up to this much amount only. Likewise, we have the end-to-end package. So what we can say, we are doing everything. New features we are adding day by day, but it's a purely microservice-based architecture. That's why we can, add anything to the system. And in addition to the feature and the technology, I need to highlight one more point: the security part. Nowadays, highlighted. See, security is the main concern of everybody. See, all our solutions are very strictly following all regulator guidelines. That is the first point. Second point, we are strictly following the OWASP standards for the development. And third one, all our products are third-party certified. Most of the products are certifying by Deloitte only. Security certification. Okay. So these are the major things I need to highlight on this development.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's interesting to see the evolution from desktop model to all the way till a microservices model. That is 2-3 generations of technology improvement. That's great. Talking of generations of technology, Rahul, if I may ask you, your organization started as a digital native organization, but I'm sure it's not reached the end of its digital journey. So what does the digital journey look like in the next 1 or 2 years? What interesting things might come up? Is it more of technologies like blockchain or AI, or is it more of business functionality that you see that the digital journey will evolve?
Yeah, as I keep on saying that it's easy to do digital, but it's very difficult to do digital transformation, right? Okay. So, coming out with apps, solution like this is very easy, right? But leading to a state where it becomes extremely meaningful for the organization and for the consumer, I think important is to ability to analyze the data, ability to learn through the data, ability to drive your next move, your next customer experience through the data. I think we are into that stage. So we do have a microservice-based architecture, right? So, we have a separate workflow built on top of it. We have a plug and play model, and that's why we're able to support such massive partnerships like partnership with Paytm. You can imagine their tech stack, and then, the pay later button, which you have on Paytm app, that is powered by clicks. So the moment customer press that, the whole technology is of clicks, right? So, I mean, then we have, deep integration with Paisabazaar, Wishwin, Moneylands, and many more. So why? Because we have a origination stack like this, right? So that is thing that there is a tick in the box. Having said that, now we are landing into a space of AI-enabled stuff, because we have to drive and learn through the data which is flowing through this digital ecosystem, right? Once you create a CX architecture view, it is very important that you start playing through your data. So we are into that stage now. So we have to build more around our AI capability. So our underwriting engine has to be 100% AI driven. We are focusing more on our analytics more and more to come up with these sort of risk analysis capability, even to an extent start boosting our collection very proactively, collection efforts through AI ML solutions, right? So that's how we are into the space right now. Now, getting to a blockchain, having said that, no, we are still at a level of utilizing our data in a very, very different way. So our focus is now there.
Okay, so converting data into oil, into gold is what is going to drive next 1 or 2 or whatever number of years.
And data is speaking much louder than any presentation, believe me.
Yeah, that will happen. Data has got the loudest voice nowadays.
Yes.
Harsh, what is driving the next generation of changes? Is it data or something else?
No, I'd agree with Rahul. I think resonate again with him that technology is certainly an enabler, but the change management on the ground and actually getting customers, getting employees, getting the entire ecosystem to adapt to these changes is really is really where the rubber, hits the road. I think for us as an organization, Manoj, we have transformed our underwriting and our data collection pieces of the loan journey. I think where we are yet to innovate and what's going to be driving the innovation for Magma now will be sourcing of our customers also digitally. So in fact, one of the dashboards we've started now tracking is what percentage of our business is coming through digital channels. The reason it took us time to get in this journey is because we are in kind of the space where Dominic's company Art is, which is, we are semi-urban rural and in the secured lending space. So if you look at the lending market in the country, you look at fintechs in the country, majority of them who are in the lending space are actually lending pretty much unsecured loans. And lending only unsecured, the lack of collateral allows you to be entirely digital. When you're in the secured lending space, whether it's vehicle finance, mortgage, what have you, you have a lot of collateral paperwork, which till date in India is not digitized. So that actually creates a physical leg in the process, and it also creates a barrier to entry because, if you're not purely digital, it's more expensive. You have to have a large branch network. That also creates barriers to entry for other people to, sort of compete with you. But it also adds a physical leg to the overall process. So we are now, looking to actually add a sourcing channel where we can source digitally as well, in addition to partnerships, with the market participants. So that's going to be the bigger driver of change for Magma. The rest, I think we are capacitized from data collection to underwriting to the disbursal documentation is entirely digital. So that I think we're all set on. To get more cars on this digital highway, or to get more vehicles on the digital highway, we want to start sourcing digitally, and that's going to drive most of the change.
That makes sense. Dominic, what is it for Art Housing Finance? Is data the goal? Is branches the goal? Is feet on street the goal? For the next 1 or 2 years, what do you think the goal is going to be?
I agree with Harsh and Rahul on data is going to be a major thing for us, because using data, the amount of data what we have collected in the last 7 to 8 years, that's going to be a major role in our analytics and data mining and the sourcing capability. And to be very frank, our kind of sourcing is from 80% of sourcing is from DSAs. So and 20% is from the digital channels. When you look at your social media, your website, and some even on the WhatsApp kind of thing, the technology what we are using, and telecalling. So 80% is from my side. Now only challenge will be that that how do you digitally convert those DSAs? Because many of the DSAs still don't adapt the technology. They're more like comfortable, just sending a text message saying, "Is customer se aap baat kar lo, inka loan chahiye, ye chahiye." This is how it works out. Yeah, when it comes to payout, we face a little bit of challenges. Now DSAs should, there are big DSAs who are about technologically driven. But when you look at the smaller DSAs where we get maximum amount of file from the rural areas, they still stick on to the manual process. There we are trying to convince them and give them a technology so that it's easy for them to load, so that the lead directly flows into my team members, and things are being distributed in a proper way. We don't find it, so that we don't face any kind of challenges. So there's one challenge which we always face, and that's what next 2 years we're going to look at that as a conversion rate. We're trying to convert, which technically may be possible, may not be possible also, but data is going to be a major data. It will play a major role for us now, especially after this COVID and the second wave COVID, to help us in the disbursement, because we cannot disperse any kind of loan without having a proper data and seeing what is the repayment, how is he going to pay for you, how are you going to recover, because then otherwise then you'll find NPS piling up on your books, and to recover NPS, it's another challenge. So that we are very, very, very cautious, and we are very choosy, and we see that our collaterals are very strong. Our legal team, especially the risk and the fraud control team, does double check, though we have a technology driven things, though we use a lot of experience scorecards, DAS and all those things, but we still do a lot of physical verification on certain things to get things moving. Okay, so we play both hybrid model, because a customer who's going to stay with me is going to stay with me for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, long tenure. It's not like secured loan is something like, because we had faced certain fraud issues where a syndicate fraud happened. One particular property sold to multiple people, multiple loans, and we are tied up with Hunter also, where we still get better control on to control the fraud things. So these are certain things which next 2-3 years we're going to see how we are going to control this post COVID, because digital is playing a role. Yes, we are doing certain amount in housing finance. Digital technology 100% cannot be used, as I agree with Harsh, because many of our registers are not being driven technically. Like none of the property documents or land property papers have been digitized. It's still a manual process. You got to go to the register's office, pull it out, bribe him, do a lot of activity. So once everything gets into technology, then we can see there's some kind of hope. But otherwise, till then we work on the hybrid model.
So one interesting question comes to mind. Among all the data that you have, there will be a lot of data about customers whose loan proposals did not pass through.
Yep.
Were rejected for whatever reason. How valuable is that data in general?
Manoj, see,
and a brief answer from everyone.
Yeah, what we have done is wherever we have found for example, I'll give you a very typical example. If a customer less than 650 and we have rejected a loan, and if it is more than 6 months, we go back to the customer and see that, if it's still feasible, or if you find the customer's last 6 months banking is very good, we take a special deviation and try dispersing the loan. See, end of the day, we go to see the business. We need to see how we are going to disperse the money. We cannot be very stringent on our policies. Somewhere we need to take a deviation, take a little bit of risk also. We do this kind of thing. That's why where we do a lot of data analytics. There's a particular team which sits and does the analytics, and 6 to 8 months we start working on this.
Rishabh, what does your organization do with data about customers that did not meet the guidelines? Rahul, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. So one is that, of course, when we talk about, the home loan and stuff like that, the SME loan and all, hybrid is a model which we can go for. But the way you said that how you use the data where you have not dispersed the case. See, the major difference is, and hence the way Harshvardhan said, it is very important that we initiate the digital sourcing, because the difference is, and Dominic would also agree, that your business starts from login, but digital starts from the lead, the traffic, right? So you don't know that at your DSA, actually you got 10 files, out of which he only passed you 2 files, out of which you approved 1 and you rejected 1. So you believe it is only 1 to relook, while there were 8 more to relook, which never appeared in your ecosystem, right? When you introduce through the digital capabilities, those hybrid model wherein the acquisition at least start with the digital interface, you will start having more and more data. And it is if in this example, you're getting 80% more data or 8 more data all of a sudden from next morning, right?
7 times more or 8 times more data. Yeah.
So that will help you when you go back to the data and try to drive something out of it. You will create value for the organization and for the consumer like anything. And I think that's where the onus lies to the technology people and to the digital folks to say, don't try to solve a fully digital journey, but try to solve at least the acquisition. And hence people like George and their solutions can give a quick plug and play model and give a quick start to say that, okay, there you are next morning from an acquisition perspective and play with those files. So I think that's a major.
So there's a lot of value before the customer becomes a customer. There's a lot of information that can be mined and leveraged. Yes. Rishabh, how is it for YouGrow? Do you use your that kind of data where customers have not been sanctioned in some meaningful way?
Yeah, we certainly use the data. We try to revisit the data, the same set of customers if they are not sanctioned because of they are not meeting the financial requirements of the business. So apart from this, there's a bigger problem right now. So the bigger problem is the logins applications till dispersal ratio. Because for each application, we incur certain cost. If that ratio is quite mismatched, if the dispersal percentage is quite low, then that cost what we incur for each application login, cost incurred on API calls, cost incurred for civil checks or filling out financial statements, is significantly massive. So we need to critically look into the lead quality which is flowing into the system. So we cannot just open the gateways for any kind of lead. That would certainly wreak havoc on our financials. Just if we, at the end of the day, if we are rejecting those leads finally. So it's very critical to increase the disbursement percentage from the leads what we are getting, and that can only happen if we are getting very good quality leads. So for this, we sensitize, train our DSAs to help them identifying the good quality leads, which can be made which can be good candidates for final disbursements. For them, we provide them various tools and technologies to make a good assessment of the customers.
Fantastic perspective. Harsh, any new perspective on that kind of data?
Yeah, I think Manoj, very simply, we've been able to use this data quite effectively to actually compare the loans that we gave to actual borrowers who passed through our scorecards versus those who failed. We actually were able to do bureau scrubs later on to see how those same customers, first of all, did other people approve those customers or not?
Okay.
Lenders approve those customers or not? And second, if other lenders did approve those customers and they did get loans, how did they perform later? So to actually improve the scorecards, this data has been incredibly useful. And of course, there's the way we design our org structures, that sales and credit, there's always a fight for life and death. So, the data comes in very handy, to actually then show to our business teams. Look, these scorecards that we've created, how do they actually end up performing on the bureau with other lenders, right? So customers who were rejected by a scorecard, if those customers got loans, did they perform well or not on other people's books? And that actually helps us then tweak our scorecard and becomes a feedback loop.
Very interesting.
That's how we've used that data.
Super. I think I got very good responses to this question. So we are kind of should be closing right now. So I'll put one final question to all of you. Maybe I can start with George. Having technology or, developing technology is great, but ultimately it boils down to implementation.
Okay.
So tell us, how has Speridian improved its implementation processes or principles? And is there any example where do you frequently have to do things out of the box, or do most of the things happen as per a plan? Question to everyone then.
Yes, it's a very good question. Normally, yes, we are following that phase-wise implementation process. Normally, we are doing that. We are working with based on some principle. That's also important. Now, we are working commitment principle and success principle. That's again coming under the project implementation principles. Sometimes we may be giving some commitment to the manager of the NBFC or the bank. then we will purely stick on that. We may have, say, a 6-month plan or 3 months plan, and we have XYZ number of milestones and all, but some commitments are in there. Like, okay, we will make it live in this time, or we need to focus more on the security part, or we need to focus more on the some training part. See, some concerns or some commitment may be there with the management. Then we will surely 100% depend on that. That is for first point. At any cost, we will not vary from the commitment. Second part, that's another important. That is a success commitment. See, success principle. What we are saying now, once we signed an agreement with any of the NBFCs or bank, then our aim is to close that project in a successful way. Yes, we have some budgets, we have some limitations to the customization volume, all the stuffs are there. But once we signed the agreement, we will not bother about the project cost or the budget cost, all the stuff. Yes, it is there. Yes, profitability is there, but we will focus more on the success factor other than these stuffs. That is our core value. And yes, again, our team is sometime. I will say one example. You asked one question, out of the box implementation. Yes, see, that's where, this happened 2 years back. Yeah, one of our, this is an NBFC, one of the leading NBFC from the South India. Yes, they have good number of branches and they have presence in Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil, 3 states. 3 states they have presence and good number of customers, and they are mainly in micro loans. What happened? No, see, once we approached there, okay, some leads, our sales people was there at that time. The situation was the CEO asked, okay, please come with your management team. Then all our senior team will sit there and CEO directly ask, can you implement this solution in 10 days time? I asked, what happened? See, the situation was there, no, see. They gave the LOS plus co-lending implementation order to one of the leading MNC in India. Yes, they have some special customizations, especially for addressing that rural area and all. But this company failed. We can say they were implementing the solution for the last 8 months and nothing delivered. And finally, the situation was no. The CEO said, CEO painfully said like this, okay, around 15 plus crore are ready to lend for last 2-3 months. And they recruited around 200 plus resources, all are sitting idle. And see, he simply asked me, can you make it live? Or can you support us to run the business in 10-15 days time? Yes, and finally we said, okay, yes, we can do that. And what we did is, we put 4 teams there. One team purely worked on that gaps and customization. Yes, we tried to live with them MVP, minimum viable product. That was our first plan. Anyway, that happened anyway. See, for that we put 4 teams. One team purely focused on the gaps and its customization, and other team worked mainly on the UAT, QA, and the training part. The other team, the third team, mainly focus on that integration part, civil, the payout. Oh, yes, we have the end-to-end enough. So many other special solutions we have, all the integrations we did. And the other team focused on the training and go live part. See, finally, we made it live in 15 days time. And okay, finally, the story, and in this way, that's what leading NBFC. They have 2-3 subsidiary companies. They give all the order to us. That's happened after that. But there goes different sources. See, someday that's why I said no. We working on commitment. We working on the successful. Success principles. See, yes, I think most of the resources, around 12-30 people worked in that project at that time. They work. Most of the days in the 24/7, like all Saturdays. Right? See, in that way, we made it live. That's
wonderful example. Let me ask all 4 of you to give maybe one example during implementation recent times, whether it was your commitment to your management or commitment from one of your technology partners or integration partners or internal teams or whatever to you. Any interesting story that you want to share where there is a learning, how to handle a situation, an abnormal situation, or has LOS implementation been smooth for all of you?
Manoj, to be very frank, implementation of LOS is always a challenge because it's a business team which plays a major role. Technology just being an enabler because your complete BRD is defined by the business team. And converting that into algorithms and implementing is always a challenge. And especially when you pick up a product from a technology vendor, working with the vendor, getting things moving and going live will always be a challenge. So there's always a buffer line. You cannot stick on to the committed dates. Yes, there are certain times where your UAT fails, your live system fails, and there are many things. So normally for any project to happen, what I've experienced in implementing the complete LMS system in our organization, it took maximum 12 months time for me to full-fledged implement the system, do the data migration, make things go live, including the microservice implementations like your Visible, Dast, and your Experience Bureau. eKYC, we were very, very successful. We were one of the KEO license holder, but unfortunately, Supreme Court brought in a picture and said that, private entities like us cannot go. Otherwise, we would have been successful. So it took 12 months for us with plus or minus, yes, we were delayed by 3 months. I agree to that, because of various reasons. It is not only the internal, it is both internal and the external factors which we had delayed. And so if you have to go very well, a project, well-planned project without a data loss during data migration, if you're doing an old system to a new system migration, it takes minimum 12 months for you to get the system up and running. Another 6 months for the system to get stabilized and, go. So it is an 18-month cycle to get the system up and running and going in a smoother way without having glitches, because you got to test the system even on a 2G network at a remote location, see if your app is working and if you are able to upload the document. That is the challenge where you come. You can do everything in your corporate office. Everything works on a desktop loader, but on a local mobile phone of a user, is it working? Is it working very well at Chomu, a location in Rajasthan where connectivity is always a challenge? These are a few challenges which we face. So, but touch wood, things went on. 18 months I took to get everything stabilized and going well. As of now, things are going well. Yeah, there's always an plus or minus issues. Infrastructure challenges are there, training challenges are there, attrition rates are there. So employees keep RORMs keep going and coming, especially the feet on street team. Always there's huge attrition of them. Training them is always a challenge. So what we have done, we have created a lot of videos, giving them the videos. But even that, that's 20% challenges always will be there. You cannot say any LOS and LMS system is 100% perfect, because every second day there's a new changes you start implementing. There's a new change request. You talk about your PLR activities. You talk about your monitoring changes. So every time there's a change. So this change has an impact on your database, impact on your front end, impact on your UIs. And at the same time, how are you going to get it up and running within the stipulated? Because your business team says, "Mere ko kal raat check chahiye PLR activity. Mere ko kal raat check person subah tak I want the moratorium activity to done." Publishing, informing the customers. So there's always a challenge. So the 20% will always be on the challenging side. That's it from my side.
Rishabh, what kind of challenges or unforeseen?
So I pretty much agree with Dominic, what Dominic said. So we pretty much face the same kind of challenges when we, in fact, even Harsh mentioned once that migrating LMS is a big thing. So we had done this activity. We migrated to a new LMS, the complete data migration, defining the scope of LMS. It's posed a big challenge. If things we overlook certain aspects of scope finalization, business requirements while migrating a new LMS, that can cause havoc at a later stage. And it cause you a lot of sleepless nights. So that's a critical part, moving from one system to another system, working with vendors, getting all the change requests, scope finalization, and converting the business requirements into technology requirements. So if done right at the beginning, then it's fine. Otherwise, if you tend to overlook certain aspects of the migration or scope, then it may cause you sleepless nights at a later stage when you want to scale.
What do you think is a typical delay because of unexpected changes?
Typical delay
overall in a big migration. Like Dominic said, it took, instead of 9, it took 12 months because of unforeseen changes. What is your experience about such unforeseen changes?
Yeah, it's not unforeseen changes. So many times it happens because requirements are not being captured in totality, basically. So when the system got in place, then sometimes we realize that these requirements are missing. Then we have to work through with vendors creating change requests. Again, there's another cycle of delay which is being added to the existing implementation. So these are the issues.
Harsh, any interesting experiences or moral of the story to share?
I think, Manoj, going with the theme that a lot of the speakers have spoken about, I would say that the technology is the easy bit. So when we were launching our brand spanking new LOS in our SME business, we took a shortcut on the duration of the pilot. And what we realized is that we did the pilot was an eyewash, and obviously weeks of UAT, months of UAT had happened. We had done the entire development in an agile fashion. So the various modules that we had, we were supposedly doing the testing of each of those modules as they were being dropped, in the drops of releases. And the entire thing also we tested in the UAT, and then also we did a very short pilot. But I think what we realized is that we had set a success criteria of the pilot. The new LOS needs to at least have n number of successful cases go through the entire application before we roll out to the entire country. We took a shortcut there because we had gotten delayed in our dev cycles, as it happens, projects. And when we actually went all India, we were, that time we used to do the SME business in about 80 branches in the country, and about 250 people were using the 250 sales guys, and about probably another 100 or so credit guys and ops guys were using the system. And it was complete mess. For 2 months, actually almost about 3 months, we had to then deal with the mess, because in a pilot, you can quickly roll back the system, you can switch back to the old platform, and so on and so forth. Once you go on all India, if you do that, people lose confidence in the new platform. So we actually then had to set up a war room, have daily huddles, morning, afternoon, night, and it was just 3 months of pain. So I think the moral learning for us was, no matter what, we must launch a pilot and have a success criteria, which is that the new platform should have at least n number of cases go through successfully in all kinds of scenarios. And I think we've implemented that learning across all our launches after that as a non-negotiable, unbroken rule. And actually that served us very well, because you'd much rather have the pain of, or the embarrassment of saying that, look, I was 3 months late in launching something, than the embarrassment of saying that, look, I lost business because of my new platform. So, I think that was the biggest learning we had. And
But you would have gone through those n number of successful cases, right? In your pilot.
We took a shortcut. We said, look, I think, UAT, we've already gone through all the scenarios. Pilot ho chuka hai, to chalo aage badhte hain, Bhagwan ka naam leke. But that's too big of a risk to take, So unless it's a do or die, it's a really big risk, which can actually impact business volumes. And I think this applies more to a running company, to a startup, or to a company that's scaling up, maybe not so much, but to a sort of running, we're a listed entity. So, any shortfall in business, immediately shows up, right? We live quarter to quarter.
So the business side and all the people side, there's pain on both sides.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
That was involved.
Absolutely. Again, the change management on the ground is very critical. So often when we as technologists launch products now, we actually seed, we know who are our champions. And we actually see that, look, why don't you talk about your experience? Why don't you, sort of give that testimony on the WhatsApp group, so that there's that positive messages which are being reinforced. Because any change is painful, so there you need the, confidence of your peers to really sort of, go like, what, I'm going to go all in and I'll deal with the pain. And I often describe it as moving into a new home. Often when you're moving to a better home, but आपका gas नहीं चलता है, आपका window नहीं खुलता है, आपका वो rust रहता है कहीं ना कहीं. So I actually explain it like that, saying कि रहेगा थोड़ा, we'll deal with the pain because the next month will be amazing. So I think that's how we, sort of realize that piloting is very important.
There are similarities between what you experienced and what Peridian did for that company, which Peridian did that project.
Right.
What they experienced, that 8-month delay or something.
Yeah.
So Rahul, final thoughts from you. From a digital native organization, what kind of episodes or moral of the story or something you want to share?
I think Dominic and Harshvardhan have pointed out all the practical scenarios. So Rishabh also talked about. See, it's the way you keep on saying, till the time you have a product, a platform running, you will have issues, right? You will have bugs. There is no full. Same way, whenever you go for a release, you line up to a situation because of any ABC reason, be it a gap in a requirement, be it a gap in some understanding, be it a quality issue on the UAT delivery. There are, because it's a big system, right? You are talking about a big release. It's not a small component that you are, implementing on top of such system. It's a system implementation. From that angle, you have to budget the things. And my thing is, if you are going for a product like Speridian, right, the way George talked about, don't land up into a hassle of functional specification, documentation and all.
Hmm.
If I were a user, I will not write any document. If I'm going for a product, I'll go through the product, I'll go through the documentation of the product and the workflow in front of me. Then I'll ask that, okay, fine, put this 5,000 case of my company into your workflow and help me run through, and I validate through the reports and the data outcome, which is there in the system. I think if we try to run the show like this on a product line, if you are building a platform, then you, of course, you need a BRD, you need a FSD, you need all those stuff. But if you're going for a product, then I believe a simple RFP based out of SOW, you just hit the product straight, have those walkthrough journeys, and run your data onto the product line, validate those data through the business owners, and then say that, okay, I'm switching it on next morning. I think that's because I have seen that people, while going for product also, start writing BRDs and FSD. And once they go live, they say that, you know, see, I wrote this in the FSD and it is not there in the product. So there the CTO and the CIO can play a role. Bullshit, no discussion happening there. It was never been the episode that this is a product you selected, choose. If you wanted a change there, which is could be a 10% to 15% change on top of your product, which is understandable, a customization. Yes, of course, give me a documentation there so that I can get it done. I think those cultural process level discussions have to be tabled upfront when you're going for such mammoth system implementation. I think that's a simple request from my side.
Now, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, simplifying the journey, avoiding unnecessary complications, having the right picture, like you said, no unnecessary documentation. And the proof of the pudding being that the applications go through and the desired results achieved by the system. A very practical way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Manojji, for organizing this. Look forward to meeting the rest of you. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.